Good morning, everyone. My name is Tyler Wiggins here with Everest Solar Systems. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We still have some people trickling in here, so we'll get started 2 minutes after the hour. So it'll be just another moment. Thank you for waiting. Okay, everyone, thank you for waiting. For those of you who just joined us, my name is Tyler Wiggins. I am the Product Development Manager here at Everest Solar Systems. And today we're going to be taking you through a demo of our base online design tool. And we're also going to be checking out our brand new integration we have with SolarEdge as well as with SMA for inverter design. So we'll go over those today. Joining me, I have Nick Pack. He is our sales manager for the West Coast. He's going to be joining us today. If you guys have any questions specifically about the SolarEdge tool or the SMA tool, he may have an answer for you. He also has some things he might want to discuss at the end when we have our questions and answers. So for those of you who have not used GoToWebinar, not familiar with it, you should see a little user interface that comes with it while you're seeing my screen here. There is a questions box in there. Feel free to input your questions at any time. I'm going to try and save about 20 minutes at the end of this webinar to cover any questions that you guys might have. So please feel free to put them in there and we will go over them at the end of this webinar. I'm going to try and keep the actual sharing of my screen about 40 minutes and leave about 20 minutes of question time at the end. If it goes over, feel free to stay on. And if not, that's okay too. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So the page I'm on right now is our home screen on Everest here on our website. If you click on the three bar button here at the top left, that'll bring you to our main menu. And if you go under your project, you will see a button for Base Online Design Tool. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. That brings you to our Base homepage. If you click directly to Base, it will take you to our Base Online Design Tool, which looks like this. This is the main page on it. So yours may not have anything logged in. I just logged into this recently. It might just say log in or sign up. So you want to create an account, go ahead and click on sign up. We can get you guys logged in. You can wait till after this webinar to do that as well if you want to. I understand that some people here may be from a country outside of the US. You might be using different units. This is a common question I get a lot, so I want to answer it right off the bat. You can change to metric if you want, or imperial. So we offer those two units here. So I'm going to go ahead and work in imperial today. That's what I'm most comfortable with, working in the US. And then there's also language options as well. You can change this to another language if you prefer to work in, say, Spanish or French. You do have that option here. So I'm gonna go ahead and stay on English US, and we'll go ahead and get started. So to open up a new project, you click on the new project button here on the left. So open that up, click OK. That error message we just saw comes up if that error message will come up if you have an old project that you started recently and you forgot to hit save. So that's a good indication that you may have had something saved. I had a test project earlier, but not going to continue with that. So we'll start a new project here. I found a pretty good sized house for us to work on today. It's in Southern California. There you go. Give me 1 second here. Just gonna mute my volume, getting some feedback. Okay. So we're gonna give this project a name. Here's the house that we're working on right here. Pretty good sized. I'm just gonna call this test project 10/3/2019. Keep it simple. On this page, you can add some information about the project, the design methodology. Right now, we just have ASCE 710 and 705. Another common question I get is, when is 716 coming? Or that is something we're in development right now. We're trying to get that done before the first of the year, but it just depends on challenges that come up with that, but that's something we're working on right now. You can put in your name for your author here. If there's a customer name that you want to put in, you can add that here as well with the contact. So after that, once you have all of that information put in, you can move over to the roof tab. It's right here. We'll click on that. And then in order to draw on top of this roof, you click on this plus button right here. If you are unsure of what the button does, you can hover over it and it'll come up with a little box, as you can see there, rename roof, delete roof, to keep it kind of easy. So we'll click on that plus button. I'm gonna start off with drawing the hip roof first, trapezoid, and this is a comp shingle roof, so I'll click on composite shingle there. So we'll see here, this is that roof I wanna draw on, so I'll go ahead and click right here in that corner. Click again. Sorry, I'm getting a little lag here. In 1 moment.
Tyler, very quickly, I have one person who says
that
they
again.
can't see your
Sorry,
screen.
must have double clicked on accident. Here we go. Sorry, folks, I'm getting a little lag here. I think my internet might be a little bit slow from running this webinar right now. Sorry, Nick, did you have something to say? My volume was cutting out a little bit there.
I have one person who says they can't see the screen right now, so
okay.
I'm waiting for them to respond if they can see it or not.
Got it. Sorry, folks, maybe having some internet challenges here. Nick, are you able to see the screen from your side?
I'm clear. Yeah, I can see everything.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm going to ask that particular attendee one more time if they're able to see it. I'm going to send you a private chat.
Okay. It looks like it's working now. Sorry, folks, had a little technical difficulty there. I'm just going to continue. It looks like it's fixed itself. So I think it was just a little bit of slow internet for a moment there, but everything seems to be okay. All right. So we've got that roof drawn, got this trapezoidal roof here. Since we're just drawing on top of it, it's hard to get it, as accurate as we need to. Like, let's say that we know that this roof is 120 feet, not 120.8 feet. You have the option of switching to a 2D view, and you can modify the numbers here. So this has 120.8. I can change this to 120. There we go. And let's say that we know that this was 75 feet, not 76.5. I can change that value as well. So when you're drawing these roofs in, it's important to start at the base of the roof here, at the eave. That tells the system what direction that slope is heading. But let's say that you accidentally started on the wrong side. You can, oops, sorry. Let me go back to that 2D view. You can modify the direction that that slope is heading with this plus and minus button. Since we're on a trapezoidal roof, slope is obviously not going to be going left or right. That's why it's grayed out here, but I will show you that on a rectangular roof. But that's a common question I get is, what does this arrow mean? That arrow is indicating what direction the slope of the roof is going. So in this case, it's going to be going from this top section here, from the ridge down to the eave down at the bottom here. So we'll just leave the dimensions like this. They'll obviously will change depending on the degree that we have. So if you modify one, it's going to modify the other. But let's just say, for example, that these are the dimensions that we had, and we'll move forward from there. So I'm going to head back to our map view. And let's say for this example, we want to put solar on this western facing roof here. And we also want to put it on this kind of southeastern facing roof here. So we have our hip roof here. On this case, I'm just going to select a gable roof here, which is this button here for gable. Click on rectangle, click on composite shingle, we'll click add. So I'm gonna come down here, right here. Sorry. All right. One more time. I accidentally double clicked again. Sorry, folks. My internet is still having a couple issues here. Try this one more time. Gable roof, rectangle, composite, add. There we go. Sorry about that. Here's the roof here. So again, starting at the eave, drawing up, that lets us know that our slope is heading down. And again, we can modify those dimensions in the 2D view if you'd like. So another question I get is about obstructions. So I'll go over those quickly here. If I switch back to roof one, this roof over here, we can see that there looks like there's some AC units maybe on top here. Can't quite make out what that is, but we'll assume it's AC, and we'll put a or maybe it's a sun vent or sunlight, can't really tell, but I'll put a obstruction in there. So we click on, you have three options for drawing obstructions. You can draw a polygon, we can draw a rectangle, or we can draw a line. So polygon is used maybe if we're on a commercial roof, it might be like a fence line or just some large area that we want to block out. It might be a weird shape. We can use in this case, we'll use the rectangle to block out this sunlight or whatever this is. The line is commonly used for like if there's conduit or like a gas line or something on top of the roof that we want to block out. So sorry, give me 1 second here. All right. Here we go. And we've got the square right there. So we'll draw that in. So I'm just going to draw one for the sake of this example, just to keep time, so we can make sure I can show you everything that we want to. But you can see that closer in the 2D view, and we can manipulate that as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our design tab here so we can add some modules to this project. In the design tab, you have the module, specific module you want to use. So I'm going to choose an LG module for this example. So you have thousands of modules to choose from here. So let me switch to the LG. And in this case, I'll just choose an A5. I know it's a more common module that people are seeing right now. This might be an older one, but we'll just choose that for this example. So now I'll click back to module arrays. Click the plus button just like we did for the roof. I'm going to use shared rail here. I'll choose portrait. You have your option of portrait or landscape. And I'll click on complete roof. Click add. And there it is. So again, this is a very large house that we're working on with a pretty large roof here. So maybe we don't want to add all of these. Let's say we want to erase some of them. You can click on this delete modules button here, and you can just hand click and delete them, or you can press the control button, press and hold, and then click, and it'll delete the entire column. Or you can press the shift button, hold the shift button, and click, and that will delete the entire row. So you have some options here. In this case, the first thing I want to do is set my roof edge offset. In this case, I'll just assume that the requirements are a 3-foot edge distance. Obviously, that can vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but in this case, I'll just assume 3 feet. And I'll just assume that I don't want to be building modules on this right side of the roof for whatever reason, just for the sake of this example. So I'll delete all of these, and I'll just make this simple and kind of do this rectangular shape array just for this example. So I'll leave that like that. Obviously, we can manipulate this however we want to. I'm going to toggle over now to that gable roof we were working on, roof 2. Zoom out a little bit so I can see this a little easier. And we'll add some modules onto this as well. I'm going to keep shared rail on here. And just for fun, I'm going to change this to landscape. Go ahead, click on add. And here's those modules there. Again, this is a pretty good sized roof. So I'm going to set our offset here. We'll just go to 4 feet for this example. Again, we can make this whatever we'd like to. And one thing I wanted to show was we have a new feature for what we're referring to as portscape arrays. This is if you have, say, a couple rows of portrait modules and you want to have a row of landscape modules on the top or the bottom. You do have that option with this system. So if I go ahead and change this to portrait, and let's say, I'm wondering if I can squeeze another row of landscape modules in between. Probably can't do that with a 3-foot offset. Let's change it, or sorry, with a 4-foot offset, let's change that to 3. And then let's say, okay, we want to try and squeeze another row of landscape modules on top. If you see there's a portscape option here, you can change this to top row landscape, and it'll bring in that top row and make that landscape there. So you do have some options with that. For this example, I'm just going to keep it simple. Keep them all portrait, but you do have options to kind of maneuver those around. There's also options for tucked versus non-tucked rails. I will get into that when we look at the results page. So just kind of show you what we mean by that. So move over to loads. Now that we've kind of decided that's where we want our modules. You'll see there's options for wind exposure and risk category and wind speed and snow load. Since we're in Southern California, I know our wind speed is 110 miles an hour. I'll go ahead and change that to 110. Then I'll toggle over to roof 1 and set that parameter as well. You could be in a region that has a higher wind speed. You can put whatever wind speed is required for that area, and it's going to calculate it per that wind speed. But I know in this case, we're 110 miles an hour, so I'll keep that as 110. So now we're okay with our wind exposure or risk category. For those of you who may not know what these values are, there is some literature you can find online. These values are per ASCE 710. So for those of us joining us from Latin American markets, please feel free to contact our engineers at Everest in Guadalajara, Mexico. They will be able to help you out with determining what values would be best to use for your project. All right, so now I've got my modules where I want them. I got the roof drawn how I'd like it, and I have the loads put in. We're now ready to go to the results page. So go ahead to come to that. And this is our roof one, that sort of large trapezoidal roof we're working on. What we're looking at here is we have our module field or our array, and these blue lines represent the rail, and the dark boxes represent our roof attachments. So if we go ahead and click on, move this out of the way, there's a layers button here, so show/hide components. If you click on that, whoops, you see that there's options for roof structure, roof zones, and obstructions. So you can go ahead and toggle those on and kind of see what we're looking at here. You can see where the attachments are attaching to the rafters. You can see where the roof zones are. And you can see how those spans are going to differ between each roof zone. Kind of like what we're looking at here. So I mentioned before tucked rails versus untucked rails. So since this is a shared rail system, the rails are running in between each row of modules. We have the ability to tuck this rail up underneath this row of modules here to sort of hide it. So you have the option of using a skirt, which we do offer, and we also have the option of tucking that rail and using our new Yeti hidden end clamp to hide those rails and keep them flush with the edge of the system. So if we want to do that, we can toggle back to the design tab. See our system here. Tucked rail option, you have the option of tucking the front, tucking the back, or tucking both. So we'll look at tucking both. Just for the sake of this example, I can toggle back to the results page. And then I can see the rails now are tucked underneath the edge of the back and the front of the array. You also have some options on the left-hand side for components. You'll see this Crossrail 48X, the rail type, whether you want mill or dark. If you're using microinverter mounts, if you want to use cable clips, end caps, you can toggle on and off what you would like to have on there. So if I toggle now over to roof 2, you can see what that one looks like. Here we can see the untucked rail since we didn't select that on the design tab, but now we can kind of look at both of them so you can compare. All right, so now sort of what we wanted to get into today was talking about Everest Plus. Once we've decided that this is where we want those modules, we're happy with how this array looks, we can go into the summary tab, and over here we can click on inverter design, and it will bring up, it will link us to either SolarEdge or SMA. It'll give us an option to choose. Real quick before I do that though, for those who may not be familiar with base, from this page you can view the bill of materials. Here you can also view the roof that we have up there. We can look at the report. If we click on generate, it will generate the report for this system, which I'll do that real fast just so we can see what that looks like. But with each of our systems that you create on base, it will give you a report. So it just downloads as a PDF. We can open that. Has title page, has some information about the system, the module that we use for each roof. In this case, I didn't select a different module for that second roof. So, if you get, it's more of, we see that on commercial projects, if they need to use two different module types on different roofs, maybe they're in the same space, but they're two different roofs that are going in different times of the year. We can see that people use different modules. Residential roofs, most of the time you're using the same one. So just keep in mind, you'll need to make sure that you click on the module, or else it's going to default to a different one. This gives you an overview of the project, where those zones are, where the modules are located in reference to the structure of the roof beneath, and some more information. So looks like have a little bit of time left. I want to make sure that we touch on Everest Plus. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle back over to our summary tab and click on inverter design. So if I click here, it gives me two options. I can do inverter design, export for SolarEdge or for SMA. Go ahead and click on the SolarEdge one now. Take a moment to gather the resources. And since I've already logged into this, it just logged me right back into my SolarEdge account. But a window, if this is the first time you're using it, a window will pop up and it will ask you to log in. You use your SolarEdge account login information, and it will log you right in. And at this point, as you can see, it's exported my project now into SolarEdge's design tool. So I can manipulate from here just as you would while using SolarEdge. The functions are exactly the same. We are on SolarEdge design tool at this point. So you're modifying your project to however you normally would using SolarEdge's design tool. So Nick, was there anything that you wanted to add as far as the SolarEdge design tool is concerned at this point?
Hi everybody, how are you doing? This is Nick Pack. I'm the Western Regional Manager with Territory Manager with Everest, and as Tyler's done a great job here designing this array for this very nice property, the connection that we have with this API bridge that connects not just to SolarEdge but also to SMA is a very intuitive and useful tool to get you all of the system production you're looking for on the back end of designing the array. So if you go ahead and click that auto stringing button, Tyler, you can actually see that we can actually put the optimizers in an auto stringing fashion with the tool. So this will some of you designers out there, I'm sure, prefer to draw the stringing yourself or prefer to design the electrical layout yourself. You can utilize the AI that's built into the SolarEdge Designer to give you a selected and optimized option for the inverters here. If you click the generate button on the bottom right, and we'll just go through this briefly here, and click summary, which is on the left hand side in the blue tab. This will actually give you the annual production of the system. So there's some great stuff that's built into not only designing your array with Everest base tool, but having the compatibility to toggle between different platforms. So we wanted to just get everybody an opportunity to see this working live and on this webinar. So that's really all I wanted to just give everybody an opportunity to see. Tyler, you've done a great job with designing the array and showing people how to do multiple roof plus an obstruction. You'll also see that that obstruction has been placed on the SolarEdge tool as well. So we've been working for a long time on developing this API bridge, and there's some great value built into this for you. You don't have to do both processes. You can only do one design.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that with us, Nick. Really appreciate your input on that. So at this time, I'm just going to very quickly kind of go into the SMA tool so you guys can see that as well. And then again, if you guys have questions, please be putting them into the question box, and we'll cover those in just a few minutes. So similar with the SolarEdge tool, I'll click on Inverter Design, I'll click on SMA, and it will begin the process of exporting this project into the SMA tool. So it brings us into Sunny Design, and we have the project here with some more information about it. And we can continue on with this tool just as you normally would for previous projects you may have worked on. Nick, did you have anything you wanted to add for this tool?
I'm actually still, thank you, Tyler, but I'm still a little fresh to this tool. We did have a representative from SMA come by our booth and do some work to while we were demoing the connection with Everest Plus during the last trade show that we were just attending at Solar Power International in Utah. You can configure the system, but I'm actually still getting my training on this particular platform. Yeah. So the good news is that we've built these API bridges for everybody who's signed up for base. You automatically get the access to this. You just need to make sure that you already have a login with SolarEdge and with Sunny Design from SMA. So they do, it does both processes. Well, it'll take the array layout that you've configured in base, and you can toggle between the two different inverter manufacturers of your choice, and we even have more to come.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. And I agree with everything discussed there. I'm also in the same boat as Nick right now, still getting my feet wet with the SMA tool. But for those of you who are already familiar with it, as Nick mentioned, the benefit is huge of being able to toggle between the Everest design tool and this tool to make sure that your needs are met from both Everest side as well as the Sunny Design side. So that kind of brings us to the end, at least of everything that I wanted to discuss today and share with you guys. I know you probably have a lot of questions, so I think now is a good time for me to take those on and see if we can get them answered for you. So again, if anyone has any questions, please show them in the, or sorry, please write them into the little questions box in the GoToWebinar user interface there. Let's see, me looking at some of them now.
Yeah, we do have a couple here. So
okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going through. Okay. All right. Our first question here. One moment here. Okay. Here's the question. How software calculates the building height and the roof pitch? Is it detected according to the map or is it a random number? That's a great question. It is not detected according to the map. That is something that you'll have to enter. So yeah, sorry, I kind of went over that quickly. I wanted to make sure we got to Everest Plus, but if you want to manipulate the building height, you can do so here in building height. Let's say for this example, it's 20 feet tall. And then the slope of the roof, you have options here from 0 to 55 degrees. So since this is a sloped roof, maybe it's 20. You know, you have the option to change that, or the ability to change that value. So great question.
correct. As Tyler was just stating, the software does make an assumption at 30 feet, and actually most array online platforms do make an assumption of 30 feet for the structure already.
Okay.
He's in.
Okay. I have another question here. When you mention SMA, is that the Sunny Web Design Tool or another one? So it is the Sunny Web Design Tool. So I answered your question on that one. So I have a question here. What other Everest products can you lay out on the design tool? It's a great question. So right now we have the ability to design our mini rail system, which is for trapezoidal metal roof. We have our flush mounted systems for shared rail and cross rail, and you can design those on standing seam, comp shingle, or tile roofs. And then we also have our commercial system, which is D-Dome R squared, and that can be done on low slope roofs, which are 0 to 5 degree pitch.
It says muted. Enter audio pin.
Okay. Another question I have here, can you support multiple building heights? Is that question for multiple building heights on the same project? Just so I can, well, I'll assume that, so I'll take this a couple ways. I'll assume it's multiple building heights on the same project. You can do that. So let's say roof 2 is 20 feet and roof 1 is like 40 feet or I don't know, we'll go with 15 feet. You can do that. So you do have that option of doing multiple building heights within the same project. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, feel free to ask a follow-up question and I'll get to that one in a moment. Do you have the ability to add some extra parts for spares? Great question here. Let's go over to our summary tab.
That
So
is a
since we
good
changed the roof height, it will affect the loads. So that's why it's having us not letting us continue since we've modified the actual roof. Same with getting to the summary. It has to recalculate, which it's doing now. And then we'll move into the summary tab here. So if you click on the edit bill of material option here, you can manipulate the quantities. So let's say that, I don't know, we wanted to add some extra clamps. Maybe you were having some issues with being short on clamps on jobs. You can add clamps here. So let's say we have 52, but I just wanted to make it an even 60. Since I know that these come in boxes of 20, it's just easier for me to have 3 full boxes of them. You can manipulate that. Click on apply, and then it highlights it, letting you know what you manipulated, what extra quantities that you took care of. So that's a great question.
There's also another feature built into this window here. Then if you look down at the bill of materials, Tyler, and float over that magnifying glass,
Yep.
this will actually show you an image of the actual parts. I think a visual representation of what is on this bill of materials instead of just descriptions and part numbers is something that a lot of people have asked for. And those are some of the things that we've built into this to make it very intuitive, to make the design process as supportive as possible, and also reducing the amount of clicks that you need to do to get to a layout.
Excellent. Thank you for adding that, Nick. Absolutely. All right, got some more questions here. I'll make sure I get to everyone today. It says, I tried to draw a polyform slanted roof, but it wouldn't let me, only rectangular. Yes, so that is something that we're currently working on right now, is the ability to draw those polygon shaped roofs on there. The biggest issue why it's currently not added right now is that within ASCE 710's code, the zones for those roofs is not as clear. So we want to make sure that we're working with our engineering firms to make sure that we're handling those zone calculations correctly on those polygon shaped roofs. So it's something that we're working on. It's just not, unfortunately, it's not as easy to program as these rectangular roofs are right now. So what I would recommend doing is consulting with the engineer of record on the project, drawing that rectangular shape. Maybe you're drawing it over that polygon roof, and then consult with the engineer of record on the project. They may have some, it's up to they have the final say, I guess I should say, on where they want those attachments placed. If there's some corners of that roof they feel are going to be in higher load than other, that may not be represented best by a rectangular roof drawn on this tool. So I guess what I'm trying to say, long story short, is consult the engineer of record on those oddly shaped roofs, and they'll have the best judgment on where those attachments need to be, or if additional attachments need to be added. All right, to the next question here. Crossrail tilt is still not supported. That's correct. At this moment, Crossrail tilt is still not supported. That is something we are also working on. We have quite a large amount of projects that we're trying to add into base. So that is a high priority item for us. It is something that we are actively working on right now. Unfortunately, I do not have a date on when that will be implemented, but that is absolutely a high priority item that we are working on.
I'd like to add to that too. We appreciate you asking questions about the tilt system. What we've really tried to accomplish here with base is multiple roof type and multiple application. So we have all the way down from what Tyler's designed here, which I would consider a large format residence system. But our D-dome ballasted system, the Mini Rail Express, all of our flush attached comp shingle and tile mounts are all built into this same platform. So we are adding more as it improves. So we really tried to put everything into this toolbox to help your team get across the finish line with their installs.
That's absolutely correct. Thank you for adding that. Nick. Appreciate the commentary on that one. All right, so let's move on to the next question here. Says, do you define connection spacing directly, automatically considered based on rafter spacing input? So great question there. So if I toggle back over to the design tab, we'll just consider this roof for this example. And I come into here, we'll see that there's a button toggled here, define spans automatically. So what the tool is doing, it's taking everything that you've input, these loads, roof parameters, where you've placed the modules, and it's giving you the biggest possible span based on the engineering that's been done for these systems. So let's just say for this example, because I've seen this in jurisdictions out in California where they require the fasteners to be no more than 48 inches apart. I can go ahead and toggle that, and now it's saying, all right, everything on this system is now 48 inches apart. So go back to the results tab, it's gonna have to recalculate all of that. Now we can see, we know these rafters are spaced at 24 inches. That's what we defined in that roof tab. And now these fasteners are all spaced at 48 inches apart. So you do have the ability to define the spacing between these attachments for this entire array.
That was a very good question. Yeah, I was glad that was asked, because there's a lot of like we've said multiple times in here, the base designer here makes very little assumptions, and it gives you the freedom and utility to put in parameters that you think are viable to not just to your structure, but are asked from your AHJ, as Tyler did just specify. If it would be okay, I'd like to take this next question, actually, Tyler.
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
a question here. Can we send this report to a dealer for pricing? You absolutely can, because that bill of materials right here gives you a part count and the part numbers that your preferred distributor can quote you on. And if you go over to the Solar Edge side as well, you'll also notice that if you scroll to the bottom, that you have a bill of materials for what inverters you need. Now, this is the count of inverters for your SE 10Ks. This is the count of your optimizers, your P320s. You'll see how many modules you're going to need. So the connection between these two platforms is going to be a very resourceful option for you to actually get pricing pretty rapidly from your preferred network of where you buy your solar products. Pretty much everything is in there. The only thing that they need to tell you now is how much cable you need.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking on that question, Nick. And that was a great question. So thanks for whoever asked that one. All right, moving on to the next question here. So I'm gonna read this real fast. Okay, they're asking if our new Yeti hidden end clamp affects the bill of material and the number of material that they would need. Is it reduce the amount of elements in some way? That's a great question. Want to make sure I answer that correctly. Using a hidden end clamp on a shared rail system. So let me go back to roof 1. Again, we manipulated it before, so it needed to recalculate the load. So go back to the results page here. Let me zoom in here. We can see that it brought that rail from the bottommost part of that array and tucked it up. So when that rail was down here, there was 2 end clamps for each module here. So 2 times however many modules that goes across. When we implement using the hidden end clamp, so tucking that rail up and using the hidden end clamp on the edge of the module here, it's now taken all of those end clamps, those top-down end clamps we would have, and turned it into a mid clamp that goes here and a hidden end clamp that goes on the module over here. Now, again, something I really want to make sure that's clear for everyone: tucked rails do not always work for every module out there. It's very important to make sure that the module itself is compatible with this style of clamping. So not all of them are. Some modules, some module manufacturers only allow for clamping on the long side of the module, for example. So if you're going to do shared rail, you'd have to consider a landscape orientation for that module. So something I just want to make sure is clear from the start. So I guess to answer that question, in this case, it would reduce the amount of end clamps you are using, but it's kind of swapping that out for mid clamps. So it can definitely have an effect on the bill of material, whether or not it's an effect that is less expensive or not, or the amount of material, I think, is very much going to be dependent on the geometry of the array, but it's absolutely something you could look at. I mean, for an example like this, we could look at running the bill of material. Say we only had that one roof, we could run the bill of material with the rail tucked and run with it untucked, and then kind of compare the bill of materials from there. So with this system, you do have the option to decide for yourself if tucking the rail and using the Yeti hidden end clamp is best for the project or not. So that was a great question. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Okay. Similar question to what was asked before, so I think it was answered there. Can you export panel and connection layout as a CAD file? So unfortunately at this time we do not have that option. Again, that is something that we are working on in the background. I'm not sure what priority level that one is at, but it's something that we've been trying to get implemented for a while. Unfortunately, it is a little difficult on the programming side to be able to export to that CAD file layout or that DXF file. So something we're looking at. It's absolutely on our priorities list, but I'm not sure again when that will be coming out, but it's something that we're working on. Do know that. I've got a question here and I don't fully understand it. Fastening method, I do not see the drop down active. So I'm guessing you're talking about the fastener here and being able to choose what fastener you're using. So I'll assume that's what the question was talking about. If you need to re-ask that one, feel free to do so. Sorry, I'm having. Here we go. So let's assume that you wanted to maybe select a different fastener type. So with this system, since it's in shared rail and it's comp shingle, I would highly recommend using our slide kit. But let's say for this particular example, there was another slider from a third party that you wanted to use. You can click on third party roof attachment and it will calculate out the correct number of L feet that you need and account for that. Let's just say for the sake of this example, this was a standing seam roof and we wanted to look at using either the Everest power clamp, or if there was a third party attachment, you could click on third party attachment, or you could just click on a L foot slotted set and it'll bring up that L foot. You know, maybe you're not sure of what third party attachment you want to use at that point. You could just have an L foot added. So with shared rail, you're a little more limited on roof attachment options. If this was, say, a tile roof, then there would be a lot more options depending on the tile type, whether you wanted to use a third-party attachment, whether you wanted to use an Everest hook, things like that. So you do have some options on selecting your fastener. So I hope that answers that question. All right, bring back up our questions here. Looks like we have some more. Continue on. We have a note here from someone, and this is a good thing that worth saying, is that if you are designing tilt projects, we still have our standard crossrail system, or sorry, a crossrail tool on our website, and we will be keeping that up until we have tilt added to base. So if you need to go to that, it's same with your project. You can click on crossrail design tool and it will bring you into that. That tool's significantly more limited than base. It does not have the option of drawing on maps. It's just a very simple calculator where you basically add in the rows of tilt modules that you need, and it will calculate a very simple bill of material for you. But it does work. So if you are in need of a tool for tilt, you still have that option. All right, got some more questions here. I'm going to continue on. Okay, this is another good question talking about concrete roofs and Mexico. So yes, with both the markets working in Mexico and other Latin American markets, you're absolutely correct that concrete roofs are the most common type out there. We'll say concrete and metal roofs. So that is something that we are working on. We're going to be adding that concrete roof option with the tilt system. If you do, let's say that you are putting a sloped system on a concrete roof. I have seen those in Mexico. What can you do? Again, you could pick comp shingle. We know it's not comp shingle. We're just going to assume that it's concrete, and you can just select L-foot slotted set mill, and then you could bolt that L-foot into the roof. Obviously, you'll need to make sure that it's the correct anchor that you're using, whether it's a Hilti or one of the other anchor companies. So make sure that that anchor is compatible with our L-foot, but you can just choose a slotted L-foot to put in there. Whether it's a comp shingle roof, a tile roof, or a concrete roof, the loads are going to be calculated the same. The material that makes up the decking of the roof, we'll call it, will not affect the actual loads on the system. The loads will be identical. So even though it says composite shingle, you could use that as long as you change your fastener type away from a composite shingle anchor and choose, or sorry, fastener, and choose, I would just choose an L-foot set in this case. If you have more questions about that, again, please feel free to contact our office in Guadalajara, Mexico. Our team there can absolutely help you with walking you through a project if it needs to be on a concrete roof. We have some workarounds for now, but we are working on getting concrete roof options added to this system to make it more easier. All right, some more questions here. The question is, if I do not have the address, can I put in coordinates? We are adding a lot of features to this right now, and I'm honestly not sure. It does not look like that is an option right now, but that is something that I have requested from our programming team. I will make another note about that, so thank you for asking, and I'll see if we can get that or added on there, where that's at in our schedule. But that is something that we've requested to get added. So at this point, it does not look like it's an option.
I did see that question as well, Tyler, and I did want to make sure that we drove over that as well. You are able to put the city, state, and zip code, which will give you your weather information based upon wind zones. So, for instance, you can type in, like I said, just the city, the state, and the zip code. I've had success with that, especially with constructions that aren't finished yet, where they're still building them. So, for instance, let's say if they're building a 60,000 square foot or 200,000 square foot warehouse, it's physically not erected yet, and the plan set is just looking for what we could provide for the square footage of the actual layout drawing. I've been able to do that with just the city, state, and zip code.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can. This it's powered by Google Maps, so it behaves very similar to how Google Maps would. So yeah, like you said, if you put in just the city, it will just bring you up to that city, and you can, if you know the area where it is, you can zoom in and then draw over that area. So you do have that option. So thank you, Nick, for bringing that up. So the question here is it possible to draw an obstruction parallel to a sloped roof with the same inclination? So I'm guessing that is a question referring to, if we go back to the Solar Edge design tool, move here. It looks like in that summary page, I think this is where it was. Let me look at that. We can see that it's kind of drawing that as more like a chimney rather than an actual obstruction. So I'll have to work with Solar Edge and see if there's a way we can manipulate that. But that's a good question, and unfortunately this time I don't have the exact answer to that right now on how those are drawn. It looks like they're drawn parallel to the ground. It looks like this question is asking, is there a way to draw it parallel to the slope of the roof? So that's something I'll have to ask. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. So if you feel free to send me an email, and that way I can make sure I get back to you. My email is t.wiggins@everest-solarsystems.com. And I'll see if I can get in touch with our programming team and see, sort of where that is, or if there's anything we can do for that specific need. But it looks like right now, at least how SolarEdge is interpreting it, is interpreting that obstruction to be parallel to the ground, not parallel to the slope of the roof. So that's definitely something we can look at and see, how big of a need that is. All right, the next question I have here. Are the splices called out? I don't see a flashing on each side, and why? Good question. Let me move over to our results page so I can see what you're talking about here. So we'll zoom in on a splice. In this particular case, it's located right here. So I think the question is, why aren't you seeing an attachment on both sides? We do have them here. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. This might be a question as to are there any design limitations with the splice? So I'll just answer that, assuming that's what the question is. So this particular splice for our 48X and our 48XL rail is what's known as a structural splice. So what that means is that a spliced rail, these two rails spliced together, will behave the same as if the rail was unspliced. Now, there are some wind and snow load limitations for that, which you can find on our website in our downloads. That we have a signed and sealed engineering letter that lays out specifically what conditions that splice can be installed in to be considered a structural splice, and when it can be installed in with not. So to try and explain that a little bit better, our Crossrail 80 splice is what's considered a non-structural splice, or a more traditional splice that some other racking companies have. And basically what that means is that where that splice is located compared to the fastener is going to be defined by the maximum allowable cantilever of that rail, as well as requiring a certain amount of attachments on both sides of that splice. So if this splice was non-structural, for example, this cantilever would likely be too long. We would likely have to put an attachment right here and not right here. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, next question here. It just says the tucked rail option. I went over that before, but that's located in the design tab. You can toggle between a tucked rail or an untucked rail. That's specifically for shared rail. With our dual rail system, those rails are already tucked, so to speak. They're not located at the edge of that module. All right, next question here. In the fastening method, we use a lot of concrete anchor, and in the menu, I cannot select another fastening method with ballast. I want to make sure I'm answering this question correctly, so please feel free to ask a follow-up on this. When you say ballast, I'm more of thinking of our D-dome system. So if you're talking about anchoring methods into concrete for a D-dome system, we do have some options for that we've looked at for installations in Mexico and other Latin American markets. If that is what the question is referring to, I would definitely recommend speaking with our engineering team in Guadalajara, Mexico. They have a lot of information on installing those fasteners into concrete. If you're talking about sloped roof systems, I kind of covered that before. I definitely recommend choosing a slotted L-foot and then making sure that the particular anchor you're choosing is compatible with that concrete roof, as well as compatible with that L-foot. So hopefully that answers that, but again, please feel free to ask a follow-up. Question here is about where to clamp. Is that info considered in the base module database, or do we have to go look for that in a spec sheet or module installation manual? So great question. This database that we have in the design tab with these thousands of modules, this is basically every module that you can feasibly buy in the world. I mean, we have thousands of options here. So unfortunately with this database, it does not take into account allowable clamping locations. We looked at adding that into the code, but it was very difficult to do so. The way we could get this quickly to our customers was just choosing some typical rules for clamping locations, like on the quarter points is general, like for most module manufacturers, the quarter points on the long side and the short side is generally the area that these modules are clamped. So that's the rule that it's assuming. It gives a space on that long side, on that short side, that is about the quarter point to the fifth point. I think it's some very small range in there that we chose based on some select module manufacturers that we worked with that are the major ones and kind of have a general rule for it. But in any case, with any project, you know, I tell this to all of our customers. I think it's very, very important to ensure that that module is compatible with the installation based on the snow loads, based on the wind conditions, based on how it's clamped down. Not every module is created equal. Some modules can handle more loads than others. Some modules can be clamped in certain locations while others can't. So it's definitely important to consult the module manufacturer or the installation manual for that module to understand what its capabilities are. That's a great question though. All right, we've hit 11 o'clock here. I'm going to keep staying on and answering questions. So if you'd like to stay on the webinar, please feel free to do so. For those who need to leave, this webinar is being recorded. We will have an email sent out. So if you need to go now, you can listen back and catch up on what was missed. So up to you guys, but I'll stay on as long as needed till all these questions are answered. All right, so the next question here, the number of flashings to the number of splices appears low. Do you not put a flashing on each side of your splice? Again, that's a great question, but I think I answered that kind of talking about the differences between a structural splice and a non-structural splice. Again, this flashing count might seem low because this is a shared rail system. So these rails are shared in between each of these module rows. So it's eliminating some of those rails and some of those flashings. So that might account for that low flashing count that you're seeing in that bill of material.
I'd like to speak to that as well, Tyler. So if you go into the summary real quick.
Yep.
One of the things we've built into here as well is you can export this bill of materials to Excel. You can also take the shared rail and put it right back to the dual rail application, and you can compare and contrast the material consumption per job. So there's a lot of flexibility built into this, so you can do some cost comparisons yourself outside of the information that is built into the tool. You can take it and run a cost analysis and see if you're actually consuming less material with shared rail, which we have designed this to do that. But feel free to download the summaries yourself, toggle between the two different applications of mounting the rail, and you'll notice that shared rail does do a 25% reduction in material with the same exact product. So there's you can pivot at any point you want, and I believe we're still the only design tool that that offers the shared rail application. So
what Nick was talking about was right here in mounting system. You can toggle between shared rail and cross rail. So we'll just do this very quickly just to kind of show. It's going to bring us back to our results. So here's the difference now. Those rails are going this more of a traditional style, you know, underneath the modules portrait.
You can already just visually see that we're using more material. And if you go to the right-hand side of that bill of materials, we can just see that, let's just take the rail count by itself, 20 rails. And then if Tyler toggles back to design and goes to shared rail, and we let the software recalculate, hit summary. Visually, you can see we're already using less rail, 13 rails deployed to that array.
All right, great question, and Nick, thank you for assisting there with the explanation on that. So yeah, just as Nick said, you do have the ability to toggle back and forth, so you can kind of work in this tool until you find something that works for the job. Okay. On the roof tab, is there a fastening drop-down method? I don't believe there is, probably because we have not put the modules in yet, so it's not giving you the option to choose the fastener. I think though we could probably look at adding the fastener option to the design tab, and I think that might make more sense in the flow instead of choosing that fastener option at the end. Maybe we choose it in the design tab. So I'll talk to our programming team. I think that's a good question, and maybe that's a good thing to add on here. So I'll see how difficult that is. That shouldn't be an issue, but I'll talk to them and see. But I like that idea. It's a good idea. Thanks for asking that question. All right, another question here. I have used your slanted roof system on slanted concrete roofs. Okay, thanks for asking that. So yeah, again, I would just kind of use that workaround we talked about of choosing a slotted L foot for that. Again, that might be for shared rail. You're gonna have to be more precise about where you add them though. But I know we have a SKU for selling just our slider that's intended to be installed into concrete roofs. And again, I would speak with our team in Guadalajara, Mexico, and they can speak with you about some options there for finding a roof attachment that'll work for shared rail on a concrete roof. Okay. Okay, keep going here. Some of these questions have already been answered. Sorry, I'm just gonna kind of skip over them a little bit. Okay, sorry guys. Some of these questions have already been answered. Getting to the end here, just want to make sure we're covering everything. All right, so the final question is, can you manage your wires in your rail? So that's a great question. So I want to make sure I'm careful about answering that one. So at the moment right now, our clamp uses a full-length bolt. It's allows you to install modules 30 to 47 millimeters, right? So if you're using, say, a 35 millimeter module, that bolt is going to recess down into the rail channel. So if you have a pretty significant amount of wires stored in that rail channel, you could definitely risk an issue with that bolt recessing into those wires. So to fully answer that question, yes, it's possible, but I would be hesitant to do so at the moment with the way our current clamp is designed. Now, if you guys were at SPI this year, then you may have seen some parts that we're working on, some clamps that we're working on to allow for the easier installation of wires into the rail channel. So for those of you who are part of our mailing list, and for those of you who are checking our website, please be on the lookout. We are developing a new product that will allow for the easier methods for managing wires in that rail channel. So that's a great question, and sorry it's a little vague on response on that, but I don't want to just go ahead and say yes, you can do it, because there may be some issues you can have with if you put too many wires in that rail channel and that bolt goes down too far. So something that you definitely want to keep in mind if you're going to try doing that. And then I have another question here. This is our last question, it looks like. Is there only one ground lug per shared rail array? Yes, at the moment, that is the case. There is one ground lug for the entire array. So this array, just similar to a railless system, all of these modules are interconnected throughout this entire array. So at the moment, there is only one ground lug. So, you know, as UL and other AHJs learn more about these systems, it's difficult to say if that will always remain the case. But at the moment, this system has a UL listing with one ground lug required for the entire array. So yes, in that bill of material, seeing one ground lug because that is all that's required. All right. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. For those of you who maybe had to step out for a moment, I just want to reiterate that this webinar is being recorded. It will be emailed out to everyone. You should see that within the next couple days. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to email myself or feel free to email our sales team. You can reach them at info@everest-solarsystems.com. You can reach myself. I'm Tyler Wiggins. My email is t.wiggins, it's WIGGINS, at everest-solarsystems.com. Nick, is there any information you'd like to give out if they would like to contact you?
I'd like to thank everybody for attending as well. My email is n.pack@everest-solarsystems.com. It's been great making sure that we build platforms that can really optimize your guys' designing and help you guys understand what the value of our Everest Crossrail system provides. It was also good to show everybody the API bridge connection that we have with Sunny Design and with Solar Edge to really speed up the process of getting your guys' systems structurally designed and engineered, as well as performing the inverter method on the back end. And we really appreciate all your attendance, everybody. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everyone. I hope you guys have a very successful rest of your week, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. And we'll be in touch. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.